Hi, how are you? And it's really, really nice to be here. And as you can see, winter in Australia, and I'm really wrapped up. But it's lovely to be able to speak with you once again. And I'm here to talk about the full moon in Sagittarius, which is going to be happening on the 5th. And it's a lunar eclipse, which is making it really important. But most importantly, this is the first lunar eclipse on the Gemini Sagittarius axis. This will be going for 18 months and will end in December 21. So this is a long-term change process, and many of the things that we'll be putting in play are going to be with us for a long time. But we've already started on that, right? We've already been working towards long-term change and continuous change. That's what this path is all about. It's all about us seeking, I was going to say seeking wisdom, but it's about us seeking knowledge and working with the energies rather than working against the energies. Because when we work with the energies, we get that little boost and that little push. And who doesn't need a little bit of support, particularly now when things are a bit unclear. Now, I've got a lot of notes, so let's just see how we're going and what's going to be happening, because it's quite exciting. Now, the other thing about this lunar eclipse, this full moon lunar eclipse, is that the North Node comes into play and it's activated. And the North Node is all about fate. It's all about our karmic inheritance, and it's all about things that are fated in our lives. So this tells you how important this Gemini Sagittarius axis is, and how important this 18 months is going to be, because it's bringing into play those things that we've been fated to take on, but perhaps for whatever reason it hasn't been time, or there's been other things that needed to move in the background. For whatever reason we haven't done it. Now we're going to be giving that opportunity to be going forward with it. And I think this is going to be really interesting. Okay. One of the things that we have to remember with an eclipse is it really gives extra push to whatever is happening, and that's what we're definitely going to be seeing with this full moon. It is an eclipse, it's a special full moon, and it's going to give a lot of push. And it's a full moon in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the archer. Sagittarius is fire, but Sagittarius is also about pushing us and our ideas forward. Sometimes perhaps pushing them a little bit too forward, too quickly, but it's definitely about pushing. So the full moon in Sagittarius is about pushing our ideas and our ambitions forward, and the eclipse is giving extra boost to that, and activating the North Node, which is karma, is putting another layer on top of that as well. So you'll see as we go through, this full moon is really going to happen. The other thing about this full moon, it's quite clear in Sagittarius, there's no other planets or major comets there, so the full impact of Sagittarius is absolutely coming to bear on this full moon as well. It's a very, very Sagittarian full moon, similar to what we had with the Gemini new moon. So one of the things is that it will be in opposition to the moon and Venus in Gemini, and the moon and Gemini in Venus will be in opposition to each other. So there's going to be a little bit of triggering. And remember, Venus is all about what we value, how we like to be valued. And that's, of course, with the sun, it's going to be highlighted. It's going to be all about me and what I need to see. Triggered basically means those sorts of things are going to be amped up a little bit and are going to come into play. And that's also going to highlight the emotional aspects of this full moon. This is quite an emotional full moon. One of the things about Gemini and Sagittarius is they're both a little impulsive. So you can see when I talked about the push, and that's being those impulsive aspects are being triggered by Venus and the Sun in opposition. So you can see that that's going to be something we're going to have to be aware of, that our emotions are really, they run deep on a full moon anyway. This time they're going to be bubbling up to the surface a little bit, and we're going to see that. We're going to have to be thinking very clearly about that. Now, Sagittarius is the great philosopher of the sky, which is really lovely. And it's really about pushing our ideas to the max. And we've gone silent and we've been listening to lots of messages that we've been getting. And so we've got a few ideas about what we would like to be doing. And if you're being like me, you've had these ideas, but it's like almost like you can't quite articulate them. You know that there's something there. You know that there's something coming, and I keep reaching for them, and it's like they're at the periphery of my vision. And this is about what this full moon is going to do. It's going to take those peripheral things that we've been really trying to articulate, that we've been trying to capture, and it's going to bring them into full vision. There's going to be a lot of clarity, because the full moon does highlight things that we need to be aware of, but it also culminates. So remember, it will be a message time as well with this full moon. Plus, it's going to be really highlighting for us. And it's going to be highlighting for us areas of dissatisfaction. When we think about this particular axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, and we think about this full moon, what it's about is balancing our mind with ambition. Because there's been a lot of ambition brewing. There's been a lot of things coming up that we would like to be doing, that we would like to be perhaps enacting. But we've been feeling a little bit like we can't, for whatever reason. And this full moon is all about bringing those things that we think have been stopping us and really bringing them up and getting us to have a good look at them. There's a lot of clarity about our self-limiting beliefs, about things that we think are holding us back, about pathways we think we should be on, but really, is that what we should be doing, or is there something else? And a lot of clarity about areas where we haven't been brave enough, areas where we've stopped ourselves because we've been too scared of pushing it a little bit, and the what if. What if this happens, and what if this happens? So it's going to be a really interesting full moon. And it's going to be highlighting for those of us who have been seeking this clarity. It's going to really be highlighting those areas where we've been holding ourselves back and where that clarity is. And that's going to be really pushing us to come to grips with the fact that we are, in many ways, our own worst enemy when it comes to achieving our ambition. And I mean our ambition, not the ambition that we got through growing up, not the ambition that was shaped for us from school, not the ambition that friends and family in the most well-meaning ways or mentors have shaped for us, but our ambition, the ambition that sits in our soul, that seeps deep within us, that we want to reach out and take up. And this full moon is about highlighting that for us. And one of the other things about this is that, remember, Sagittarius, the ruling planet of Sagittarius is Jupiter, and Jupiter is all about expansion and growth and positivity. Venus is also about expansion and growth, and Venus is sitting in Gemini, and Venus is the sign of is the planet for Jupiter, for Gemini. So you can see that there's a lot of doubling up with this full moon lunar eclipse. It's like, take whatever factor of 2 you want and double it, double it, double it, double it, because this is what we've got coming in. So we're going to have Gemini, and Gemini, remember, has been quite interesting this year, and quite interesting with the moon we've just had, the new moon, because it's been really asking us to play our own devil's advocate. And you can see how playing our own devil's advocate is setting us up to be getting absolute clarity about those things that have been holding us back and those things that we want to pursue but haven't felt we've been able to pursue. So it really is quite a fascinating full moon, and it's a fascinating time for us because it's really forcing us to think quite laterally, not just what's happening energetically, but also where we're finding ourselves globally. I mean, things are happening that are not necessarily unprecedented. We have had pandemics before, and we have had this, what would you say, leaders who have been perhaps ignoring completely what's happening in mainstream. And what we are seeing in a lot of global places is the leadership of the countries completely out of sync. And even some of the people who see themselves as global leaders completely out of sync where the rest of the country are, where we are, and where we want our lives to be, and how we want our lives to be formatted, and how we want to live. And they're really just demonstrating that they are completely out of touch and completely removed from that. And so this is also one of those things that we're clearly being shown. One of the themes that's very, very strong is that we need to be our own leader. And that's coming through more and more and more with the stars about what's been holding us back and where do we want to go with this. But also laying claim, laying claim to this is my ambition, laying claim to this is how I want to live my life, laying claim to this is my identity and I want to be proud of that identity and I want to share that identity with the world as something to be proud of. And I think this is absolutely and utterly fascinating. So there's lots of things that are going to be happening with this very pushy full moon. So one of the other things about this full moon is going to be conjunct with Sun and Venus in Gemini. So this is going to be really stimulating the full moon, the eclipse and the axes. Conjunct basically means that it's going to be working together. And remember, the Sun and Gemini are actually going to be triggering each other. So we're going to be working with two enacted strong planets that are really highlighting us and what we value. And it's not only going to be looking at that, so it's also the Sun and the Moon are going to be square Mars and Neptune. So the axes of the Sun and the Moon, because they're going to be directly opposite each other on full moons and on new moons, they're directly opposite each other. And that's going to be triggering Mars and Neptune. Now, Neptune is hidden deep, so things are bubbling up. And this is what we've been doing with the new moon. We've been listening and getting all these messages. But things that have been a bit stuck are going to be bubbling up because Mars and Neptune. Mars is full of power and fire and passion. It's the god not just of war, but it's also the god of enterprise. And it's the god of money. So Mars was definitely about giving that a bit of a push. So there might be some ideas about who we are, how we're spending our money and what our businesses might be. This is when we're going to get those insights about our work, our business and how we want that to be. It's going to be very, very interesting. So, and we're going to be clearing out anything that stands between us and our ambitions. And we're going to get clarity on those ambitions. And don't be surprised if some of those ambitions are not exactly what you thought they were going to be, but maybe might be better. So that's going to be really fascinating as well. So we're going to have this stimulus, we're going to have our feelings as well. Because remember I told you that we would have our feelings, we're going to be stimulated, and that's because there is so much truth in this full moon. And when we have this truth, and particularly if we have a truth that is really held within it, and maybe we've been protecting it a little bit, because often when we protect truths, we bury them. Maybe we've been hiding it a little bit and not wanting to put it out. And we're going to get to the stage where this truth is bursting to come out, and it's going to come out, and it's a bit like coming ready or not, here I am, and it's going to come forward. And that's going to be stimulated by Venus and Gemini, remember, and the impulsiveness which Gemini and Sagittarius share. And Jupiter, of course, is going to magnify, and Venus is about magnifying. So things we're going to be feeling emotionally, they're going to really be quite magnified. So this is the only thing. It is a little bit impulsive because Gemini and Sagittarius are both impulsive, and they Sagittarius sometimes can lead before they've thought things through, and consequently upset the apple cart a little bit. So one of the things is I want us to be thinking about is that before we work with the strong impulsiveness that's going to come through very close to the actual date of the full moon, when all of this stimulus is going to be coming in, all this additional stimulus from Mars and Venus and the triggers from Neptune, what I want us to really do is be sure of our depth of commitment. So this was some of the questions that we were being posed in the new moon, was about our depth of commitment, and are we prepared to commit to our new undertakings. Now, please don't worry if you haven't made those commitments to new undertakings because you haven't had the clarity. We still have that opportunity, and that will come with this clarity that's going to come from this full moon to make those commitments. It's about, remember, new moons is about starting something. So don't worry if you don't get it done in 2 weeks and go, oh, I missed it. I missed that window. No. This is all about setting it up. And the other thing I want to talk to you about with the energies, it does depend very much about where these planets are in your chart, in your natal chart. It's really easy to get a free natal chart online, and they're just as good as going to a professional to get them done. And then you can start to see which house is being triggered by these activities. I mean, I'm talking at this level very generally, but if you want a little bit more detail, that's where you go to get it. And the only other thing that I would say to you about understanding all of that is that the main thread of this 18-month axis of Gemini and Sagittarius is that we are really going to be moving our communication and our behavioral patterns. And this is what this truth is. Sometimes when we want to get in touch with our truth, we look at it and it comes forward and we don't quite understand it, or we don't know how to bring it into our current life because it doesn't fit into that old framework we have about who we are and how we live our life. And this is all about what this Gemini-Sagittarius axis for the next 18 months is. It's where we will constantly be given these truths. And when I say we're given these truths are within us, but we are given the insight, or we're given the freedom, or we're given the opportunity to let it come forward. And when we're given these opportunities, this is when we need to also be able to go, well, this now needs to be part of who I am. And how you make something part of who you are is to give it the language, to give it the name, to bring it into the way we're communicating about it, but also to bring it into our behavioral patterns. Nothing is real unless we live it. And that's not living it in the imagination. That's living it day to day as we go about our work, our lives, our loving, our giving, our fighting. Unless we are living it and doing it, it's not real. It can be real on the energetic and spiritual plane, which is fab, but they're there to support us on the physical plane. Because we're here for a reason. We're here to practice. We're here to grow. We're here to face our fears. We're here to manifest and live our truths. And that's what this is all about. And this is why I think it's a really fabulous time that we're moving into. So that's one of the things that's going to be happening for the next 18 months. So we should be becoming very aware about the gaps between where we want to be and our old patterning. And sometimes our old patterning, not all of our old patterning has to be thrown out. Some of it's wonderful, and we've all been working on it, and we've all been moving and changing. But one of the things, and particularly if you're watching this now, you've committed yourself to a lifelong exploration of change. You've committed yourself to a lifelong progression of living the best life you can. and you've committed yourself to a lifelong exploration of who you are and who you can be. And that's the beauty and the glory of it. So congratulations and welcome to the club. Isn't it great? So we do need to be extra careful about the impulsiveness of this, and to make sure that we are not pushing something because it just occurred to us and it's a good idea and I'm really bored and let's do that. But because, and not because we're getting squeezed to move, but because we understand where that pressure, the squeeze, is coming from. And we need to understand what is pushing us forward, because then we understand, is this with positive intent or is this a bit of a knee-jerk reaction? Because one of the two things to be very wary about is Gemini and Sagittarius are both impulsive. And if we're talking about lifelong change, we do need to have courage to move forward. And that's where being a little bit impulsive helps things. And sometimes being a little bit impulsive is a good way to start, because if we stay planning forever, we don't make the move. But we need to balance that out with long-term. How is that sitting with me? How is that registering with my soul? And how is that registering with my soul journey? And then moving that forward. And that's what we've got to be doing. And that's the beauty and the grace of it all. And that's a really, really nice thing to be doing. I've got a cup of tea here, so just give me a minute. Okay, I was going to do the cards, but when I sit back and see the light, I'm not so sure that the cards is the best way to do it. So I've just got the yes, so let's go with the yes. If it looks on the screen that we can't see it very well, then I'll change my mind and we'll do it again. As in, I'll do it again tomorrow morning, not this recording, or post this recording up, and I'll do the cards tomorrow morning and we can have a look at that in the light. Okay, I keep looking for my cards and reaching for the wrong box. I'm sorry. I think I did the same thing last time. I was going to do the Good Tarot, but I just got told to do the Dreams of Gaia. So let's do the Dreams of Gaia. And let's see what the cards have got for us. Okay. Oh, all right. So, okay. First card out is Healing. I don't think I need to say any more about that. And just as I said, there's nothing else to say about that. Of course I get a message. This is soul healing. And this is why it's coming from so deep. This is soul healing. So when we're talking about soul healing, we're talking about this continuous path that we've been on, and we don't know for how many lifetimes or how many years. Or incarnations we've been on this path for, but this is about healing something really deep within us, and this is why I think it's such an important new moon. And what else pops up? Of course, destiny. So we spoke about the North Node, and we talk about karma, and that is destiny, and then we're talking about a healing. And it is about soul healing, and I think that's really interesting. And the other card that's come up, and this is the first time that we've seen this card, it's the Four of Air. Now, can you see all of those ideas? All of those thoughts coming together, all radiating from the heart. And going from the solar plexus, what will people think about us, to the heart, self-love and appreciation, up to the crown, spiritual connection. Told you it was going to be big. Be kind to yourselves, everybody. Be kind to yourselves. And look at that. Also got there the 3 of air. Dragons, skulls, reading. Can you see the owl? Lots of wisdom there. So we're going to be spiritually guided. Can you see there? They're all key spirit guides. And in fact, what we've got up the top is the Phoenix rising with this card number 3, helping us learn from the Book of Wisdom. And we've got the owl, and you see the skull. So this is also talking about learning from inherited wisdom. And this is wisdom that we've got that's deep inside of us. And the other card to come out, can you see that? Is the 5. Look at that. And you see they're holding, the 5 is holding. It's 5 of earth, it's holding the deck of cards. So again, this is destiny coming into play. So there's a lot of cards there about destiny. There's a lot of cards there about wisdom. There's a lot of cards there about spiritual connection. So when we're talking about the 5th, and we're talking about the 5th being the 5th of June and this new moon, that's what we're talking about. Sorry about that, that was my phone. And it just said one more. And the other thing, if you're like me, I'm getting enormous calls to be alone, to really take time out for myself. And it's actually incredibly difficult to do because I'm living with my beautiful, generous friends. So I will soon, but I'm making the move in the next 3 days to be living by myself. And I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be spending a lot of time meditating, a lot of time really connecting back to spirit, and a lot of time just letting the messages come in to play and getting great clarity on who I am and who I need to be. And I can't be surprised. The 9 of Wands, fire, the wish card. Now what's highlighted there is the solar plexus. The solar plexus is all about our fears, about how other people perceive us. And this is the 3rd card that's had the solar plexus, 2nd card that's had the solar plexus highlighted. See the solar plexus? I'm just putting it so you can see it. There you go. See? Down here. Highlighted. Highlighted. Don't know if you can see it, but there's a, yeah, there you can. You can see there's a sphere highlighted down there, and he's holding a rose or a flower. Because this is who we are. This is also reminding us to be really, sorry, I'll get this so you can see it. There, that's better. It's really kind to ourselves. So here is the solar plexus, up here is the flower. It's also the wish card. So something's coming true. Isn't that lovely? And the last card, this is interesting. 8 of air, which is about messages and balance. Can you see? 2 swords. Again, solar plexus highlighted. 1 sword up, 1 sword down. Wings of an angel. Now this is what it's saying quite clear with these messages, is some of these messages are going to hurt. We've invested a lot of time in our lives. We've invested a lot of effort in how we see ourselves, how we present ourselves, how we communicate, how we live. And now we might just want to change that. And if it's real change, and this is the thing to remember, if it's real change, there must be some pain, there must be some pushback. Now the difference about being ready for change is that we accept this pushback and the pain and we move through it really quickly and we don't dwell on it, we don't amp it up. But when we're not ready, that's when we amp it up. And there's just one other card underneath I just want to show you. and that's the abundance card. Look at that. So, healing, destiny, Six of Air, great connection, alignment, spiritual alignment, being aware of the messages. Three of Air, wisdom, internal wisdom, and listening for that wisdom again. Five of Earth, the minor card for destiny. The wish card, the Nine of Air, Nine of Fire, sorry. And look at that. Messages coming through. So the environment we're in is abundance and messages coming in, because these were on the bottom of the deck. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there, because that is absolutely and utterly wonderful. So the only thing to remember with all of this is that we are balancing out our mind with our ambition. And the mind and our ambition, it's coming from a place deep within us. It's our truth. It is really about how we see ourselves, the spiritual messages we're getting. It's our truth. And it's the start of a great evolutionary process for us on our soul journey. And I think that's going to be really something lovely. So, don't throw the baby out the bathwater. Guard your impulsiveness and make sure that you're committed and that you are being so honest about the intention behind the move, and that the intention behind the move is coming from deep within. All right. It's going to be a little bit of emotional turbulence. That's okay. You all know how to anchor yourself. Spend some time musing, meditating. Remember, you are all safe. And remember, this is always about abundance and opportunity. All right. Wishing you the best. Enjoy your full moon, lunar eclipse. Bye.